Hello Summoners, in this video I am going to show you a wide variety of tips, including settings, shortcuts, and hotkeys with a little bit of gameplay. But this information is useful for any and all champions, so let's get started. Right here we have the abilities, items, summoner spells, and trinkets. You want these boxes checked. That means they're on SmartCast, which means when you hit your E, it immediately is cast. When not on SmartCast, if I hit R, it does not cast, and there you can see that it's ready to cast. Also, my items are on SmartCast, which means that here I can just push, instead of having to click on these, I can just hit 1, I can hit 2, I can hit 3, and that will just cast immediately, rather than having to click down here and move my mouse and place it. The next setting I want to change for this particular champion is under Interface, Enable Line Missile Display. While that is unchecked, I just see my max range, and so when I am close to my character, I can't really tell where I'm aiming. So when I enable that, now I can see where my laser beam is going to shoot. Nailed it.
Whereas on Blitzcrank, I'll want to turn off line missile display. You can see that the targeting line ends halfway up the rock. But if I turn off line missile display, it ends right at the base of the rock. And that is where the actual grab will be. With line missile display on, the line goes a little farther than your grab range actually is. I'll also want to turn Blitzcrank's Q SmartCast off.
That way I can see exactly where the max range is for when a bad guy steps too close. And so I go through and change different settings at the beginning of every game I'm playing, depending on which champion I'm playing. If I want SmartCast on, off, if I want line missile display on, off. Another important setting is here under Game, move camera on revive. So sometimes when you're watching something happen, then your character revives and the camera is brought back. So you want to uncheck that box. That way, when your character revives, you can react immediately, and you don't lose sight of the enemy from respawning. And though this is a good thing to know for when you're dying, most of the time I would highly recommend not dying. Unless, of course, you're a hero.
When you're in the store and you buy the wrong item, instead of selling it back like you would in the other item, as long as you haven't left the platform yet, you can hit this sell back button and it will refund you 100% of the gold.
The next hotkey that is important to use is here under Hotkeys and player attack move click. You want to set that to something. I think it defaults to control right click. I have mine set to mouse button 3. And what that does is when you right click you just walk around, but if there is a target close to you, when you attack move click, you will attack the target and then walk to where you're pointing. And so that way you never have to accidentally walk towards an enemy. Here's an example of where I'm attack move clicking. You can see that Poppy is right in the edge of the bush, and since movement and attacking is the same button, if I were to just click to attack her, if I were to lose vision for a split second because of the bush, I would then walk towards the bush and she would probably kill me. And so by using attack move click, I continue to move away and keep a safe distance while attacking if I do have vision. Keep in mind though that you will always attack the closest target, including minions, and so in this instance it auto-targets the closer minion instead of Poppy, which costs me the triple kill. And that's why they call me the sniper.
Another shortcut is holding control and then clicking the skill you want, and that will put the point in really quickly, and that way you don't have to move your mouse down and click on it manually. Sometimes it doesn't always go, or you could click the wrong one, or it could interfere with your fighting or walking. So if you just push control and then the skill, it'll put it in really quickly. Here I can see some enemies on the map, and I might end up getting stunned to save my allies, even though I wouldn't want that normally. Here you can see when I'm just dancing and minding my own business, Nidalee comes out of the side, and so I didn't have a point in yet, but I put it into body slam so that I could chase after her better, and this ends up burning her flash. Here a minute later, when I know that I'm a level up on her and her flash is down, even though I may normally get Q at level 1, I don't get Q till level 3 here, because my higher base damage from W combined with the slow from my E is enough to pick up first blood. And so especially at low levels, don't put your points in until you actually need them, and then when you do need them, just hold control and you can have that point immediately ready for whatever situation you're in. Another setting that you want to make sure is active is here under interface. You want to check the show timestamps box. That way whenever you kill dragon or a baron, it will automatically show the death timer, and then when you kill blue buff, red buff, when your enemy uses teleport or flash or places a ward, you can type it in the chat box and it'll stick the time on there, and so you can keep track of when everybody's cooldowns will be back up or when any of the buffs are respawning. As far as buffs spawning, always remember that blue and red buffs spawn at 155 and they respawn after 5 minutes. Dragon spawns at 2:30 and respawns after 6 minutes. Baron spawns at 15 minutes and respawns after 7 minutes. And so if you keep track of the timers, you can show up right when they spawn and kill them really quickly before the enemy team can even contest them. When taking the various buffs, remember that you don't have to take a lot of damage from them. Here, my allied Ezreal almost dies because he's taking a bunch of damage from this buff. Excuse me, tons of damage. And I wish he would have watched this video, because then he wouldn't have had to go back and lose out on his farm and experience right here. Here you can see, just a couple minutes later, I go take the buff by myself without taking any damage, because I stand out of its range and it keeps trying to reset, and so I can just take the buff for free. And this works with any champion. If you just stand at the edge of their range, you won't take as much damage.
And it really just messes with their heads. The buffs do not know how to react to this. In this clip,
you can see even though I have 0 points in the defensive mastery, I do not use a jungle item. I only start with 1 pot, and I am playing a non-traditional jungle champion. I can still successfully jungle just by staying out of the range of the jungle mobs. And so even with no defense and no sustain, I can jungle just because they're not hitting me. And even if you're not jungling, you can use this with any champion to take buffs. Even with melee champions, I get out of the range between attacks, so I take less damage. It's also important to note that here under Hotkeys and Communication, your joke, taunt, dance, and laugh are set to Control 1, Control 2, and Control 3, and I have my laugh set to T because I use that so often, and so that way, while you're out fighting and killing and whatever, you can press T really quickly to laugh at all the necessary times. do keep in mind that any of the emotes stops your champion's movement, and so if you're trying to escape, you don't always want to laugh, because it does slow you down and may cause you to die. You can also click on your allies' portraits to cast spells on them. For example, I see Tristana is low on health, and as I am a Shen, I can either hit R and click on her face, but since I have mine set to Smartcast, I can just hover over her face, hit R, and I will teleport to her. Here is Smart Pinging. You click G and click your left mouse button, and then you can drag it down to Assist Me, Enemy Missing, Danger, or On My Way. And then when you release your left mouse button, it will ping On My Way to that spot. And you can do it quickly. And then everybody else likes to do it.
When you are in-game and somebody messages you from out of game, if you type \R, it will automatically fill in their name and you can respond to them. In some cases where terrain is too thick for you to get a ward to the other side, as long as you place it closer to the far side than your side, the ward will go all the way through to the other side. You can also see your cursor turns green when it is in the bush. And so, for example, here, even though it might look like it's in the bush, you're not getting vision of that. So you need to make sure that that your cursor is green, and then you have vision inside the bush. Here you can see that the bush is actually out of range since the cursor isn't turning green. And if you were to place it here at the edge, you don't actually get vision in the bush. So this one, you'll need to put it inside the wall for the ward to go into the bush. Here's another good spot to ward. This is probably the hardest place to ward, but if you place it right in the corner of the sign, it should go into the bush. And so that about wraps up this video. I know we covered a lot of the basics, but like I mentioned before, in that how you change runes and masteries, I change settings at the beginning of every game depending on which champion I'm playing. And a lot of the times it can be the small things that make the difference. And so I hope you learned something from this video, and if you did, share it with your friends so they can learn something. Thanks for watching, and good luck with your games.